Hey, welcome back to Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast featuring Chop Talk, trivia, and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual. This week, for Chop Talk, we're going to share some DC news and maybe a little bit more. They're going to play trivia, see if I can get myself a streak. And for our main discussion, we are getting things kicked off for Found Footage February and talking about the McPherson tape and the Blair Witch Project.
Whoa, tell me where you are, Josh. Oh, getting ahead of ourselves.
Anyway, I'm Anthony, and I'm joined by Nanny McPhee and Anthony.
Hey. Yeah, so
I got through that whole intro, and I think you just barely whispered.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Proud of you. I've just turned into a real respectful dude who just really wants this whole operation to run smoothly.
And who transitions us right into Chop Talk.
Yeah. So, well, John, or sorry,
Nanny.
Miss McPhee. Is it Mrs.? Are you married? Are you betrothed, Miss McPhee? Thought you were flipping me off. How you doing? How you guys doing? How you doing?
I'm going to tell you when we get to Chop Talk.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
This week on Porcelain Peak, find out the answer to the burning question. John, how are you?
How are you? How?
I really want to know.
No, but seriously, can you please answer the question?
Yeah.
Because
we got shit to do.
the audience thinks that break, where the Chop Talk thing played, only took about 5 seconds, but
we've been here
for 83 years. Yeah, how you been? How you guys both been?
I'm pretty good. Just
you don't sound convincing.
Yeah, I had tried to convince
No, I have tomorrow off. I think I might spend that time trying to catch up on some old Academy Award films.
Oh,
think I might watch Banshees. Think I might watch Tar.
Nice, dude. Nice.
You're like, I feel like you're giving me like the Patrick Bateman. You're like, nice.
I'm just like midway through
Eggshell.
this episode, just gonna start peeling my second face off. I'm the Anthony everyone sees, but not really. No,
Hey, Paul.
Those are great movies, and I'm really excited for you guys to check them out. I think almost all of the movies that you need to see, at least to see the Best Picture ones outside of Women Talking, are all available somewhere on VOD.
I've had trouble finding Women Talking, which I think you can buy or rent.
Okay, if that's the case, then I will be checking
really?
it out.
Just go to any Starbucks.
He's made a serious and continuous lapse in judgment. And All Quiet. I thought
That's on Netflix.
Really? Oh, that explains why I couldn't find it.
It's a Netflix movie.
It explains why I couldn't find it on Apple TV.
Isn't that the worst? When you're just like, man, this
I
movie.
thought they fixed that.
For some movies, it still doesn't work for me. For others, it does.
I was like, I see 1930. I see 1979. Where the fuck is 2022?
But yeah, I've been trying to cover some of the other categories. I watched Fire of Love, which is nominated in the documentary category. I did not like that documentary very much.
Which one?
Fire of Love.
What is that about?
It is on Disney Plus. It's about two French volcanologists.
Oh, that looked dope. It's not good, huh?
So the story of the two volcanologists and their footage is amazing. But for whatever reason, the movie... This is my short little Anthony's movie spot.
Welcome to Anthony's Movie Corner.
That's a little.
I like that. Yeah.
So the movie, for some reason, it feels like they wanted the energy of somebody on Ambien doing an ASMR YouTube video.
Oh, so a sleepy time movie.
So the narrator sounds like, is it Phyllis from The Office?
It could very well be Phyllis from The Office.
I looked it up. It's not, but very similar.
Okay.
And the whole thing is just like the narration just over explains every beat of everything to you. And by the end of it, I was like,
when 2 people fall in love.
Yeah. And then I watched Turning Red, which is nominated in the animated category.
I liked it.
I was extremely put off by it for the first like 10 minutes because it's so overwhelming, like with the amount of shit that's happening on the screen. But it grew on me as it went, and I enjoyed it. I don't think that it is going to win in that category by any stretch of the imagination.
I think it's between Pinocchio and Puss in Boots.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I like seeing other cultures get some animated movies, and Disney's doing a very good job of branching out in that regard. And kaiju stuff is always dope.
Yeah, I'm excited that this is a year where it doesn't look like Pixar is just the shoe-in winner for the category. Not that I'm particularly happy that it looks like Netflix might win things in a couple categories, but that's a whole different conversation about the shit that Netflix is doing. But I liked Turning Red. I watched it with Adrienne. She came over and she doesn't have Disney Plus, so she was like, "Why don't we hop into Disney Plus and watch something that I can't watch at home?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's watch Turning Red because I want to watch that for." So I think Sea Beast is the only, which is also a Netflix movie, is the only animated one in that category that I haven't seen. But definitely text me your thoughts as you watch, because I think I've seen most of those movies that you're going to be going into.
We
so
got until March, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, I got
Crazy how late the awards. Like by the time you get to the Oscars, you're like, I don't remember shit about 2022. It was so long ago.
Pretty much.
Anything exciting going on in your life, Tone, before we get into the news?
I went and saw my nieces, fans of the show, this weekend, so that was intense.
What size do our visionary director hoodies go to?
They need them.
Oh, we do need child sizes. Good point.
Yeah.
Also, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah. My niece she's in a theater company, and so it's
coolest fucking thing ever.
It's pretty dope because there's like somebody that owns it and is, the producer of the shows, but the kids write the script, they direct it, and then they create all the sets and they act in it. So it's like really a kids theater company.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I thought so too. And they did a production of Harry Potter over the weekend, so I went down to Southern California to go see her in it. She played Ginny, and they changed some stuff up. But I was like, whatever. This is cool that they did
Can't be any worse than what J.K. Rowling's done in the past few years.
Yeah.
So.
My sister was like, what'd you think? And I was like, as a supportive uncle, fantastic. As a fan of Harry Potter,
I got some notes.
I was doing script reading with her, and then she
it's
was
Leviosa, not Leviosa.
like... Yeah, but she was Ginny, and so like I was reading through the script, and it has their whole thing at the train station,
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, she's like, "Oh, I say this part when I'm at school," and I was like, "What? This is Sorcerer's Stone. You don't show up until the second one." And my sister was like, "Who cares?" And I was like, "I do."
Continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience, right? Because I wrote one of the Harry Potter murder mysteries that it was after I had graduated high school, and I had been in one of those. So then the theater teacher was like, "Hey, why don't you write this one? You know a lot about Harry Potter." And as I was writing it, she wanted to like keep including characters that didn't make sense to be in certain, and I had to fight that, Harry Potter nerd part of my brain that's like, that doesn't fit into the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Couldn't give a shit now. I just think that's a
was
super
great,
cool
though.
idea to let kids just like have
Creative
that much control over being creative, like, and being able to collaborate with other kids. And I mean, that's awesome. And also your nieces have a ridiculous amount of personality and energy.
They got that charisma.
So I think it's good that that's being channeled toward creative things, because it could be very destructive.
Yeah, they're wild. I love those kids.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. You guys want to get into some news?
Yeah,
You guys
DC
feeling it?
news.
Yeah, well, that's the big news. So as usual, I want to run through some smaller news.
Some small news.
You guys fans of George A. Romero?
A little bit.
You guys fans of the Dead franchise?
A little bit.
A little bit? All right.
At least the first 4.
Well, Bloody Disgusting and the George A. Romero Foundation have partnered to put out a scripted audio series called The Dead that is going to explore side adventures of characters from the Dead franchise and talk about different side zombie adventures that they've had.
That's cool.
That's pretty neat. Kind of
Little bit
reminds me, like there was this game that, or like a workout game that
Like a Ouija board is a game.
No, not like that at all.
Wait, what's a workout game? Like
So-
the Wii Fit?
No, so it's like a an audio-based thing, and then you have to have some sort of a...
Is it where the zombies are chasing you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to have like some sort of a device that can tell like what your heart rate is or how fast you're going. So that way when it tells you to run, you have to run fast enough to get away, or you have to start like the chapter over again.
That's fucking sick.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did it for like over a year. Sometimes you'd have to go back and like do episodes over again or whatever, just because they didn't have enough content if you were like consistently running.
Yeah.
I think it was just called Zombies Run. But it had like these really cool, like fully voice acted segments where like different characters would be talking to each other. And so you would just be walking, listening to all these characters talk and have like these little dialogues.
Weird.
And then
That's
like
very cool. I didn't know all that about it. I just knew that there was a thing where it encouraged you to run because it made you think you were being chased by zombies.
Yeah.
Which already happens in my imagination when I run.
So this is like a podcast type thing, or?
Yeah, as far as I could tell, I assume it's going to be through Bloody Disgusting's podcast network because they have a bunch of podcasts and they do a bunch of audio stuff. So
If they need one more,
yeah,
we know some guys.
So we watched, or you watched, I think, John. It was one of your uncaught shameful somethings, Attack the Block.
Yes.
Is that on your list?
Oh, it's happening?
Attack the Block 2 officially happening. Joe Cornish is directing once again. He directed the first one. John Boyega is back. And the only bit of information we've gotten so far is that they are apparently approaching this in the style of Alien to Aliens, Terminator to T2. So they said that they looked at those movies.
More
and how
big action.
Yeah, so basically taking a very small, contained story and then expanding it into...
Making a
some
sequel,
sort.
basically.
Yeah, exactly. So they're doing classic sequel stuff. And I'm excited about it. I think John Boyega is awesome, and that is the first thing I ever saw him in was Attack the Block. So it's cool to see him going back to them roots. Because as he said in interviews, you ain't going to Disney Plus me. You ain't going to Disney Plus me.
What does that mean?
People were asking if he would consider coming back as Finn for a Disney Plus Star Wars thing. And he was like, nope, you ain't going to Disney Plus me.
So they go with people they don't want to deal with anymore? Like,
yeah.
Wanda, you can't have a movie. Here's a show. Jeremy, you can't have a movie.
Speaking
then here's
of
also
returning franchises, somebody posed the question to Kevin Bacon recently about, what the fuck is happening with a new Tremors. Is that ever going to happen? And he tweeted back and said, I'm just waiting for them to call me. So he is basically just waiting around for somebody to pitch him a new Tremors movie or show. I know he was part of that show that did a pilot and never went anywhere.
Yeah, they keep trying to make Tremors happen.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any of them but the first one. I think the first one is great, but I'm not a huge fan, so I'm not super attached, but I just love Kevin Bacon. So if he's going to be in a new horror thing,
Kevin
or
Bacon,
horror
Kevin
comedy.
Bacon. He just came out with I think conversion camp movie or something.
It's
They,
they
them.
slash them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You pronounce the slash because it's a
slasher
joke. Yeah. Some franchises though, they come back and then they disappear just as fast as they showed up, and that is the case with Let the Right One In. So I mentioned to you guys recently that in the ever-evolving world of streaming services, Showtime is now being absorbed like the blob into Paramount Plus. They are going to become... It's just going to be Paramount Plus Showtime.
At least there's an answer to why there's a plus on everything.
Yeah.
Plus, Showtime.
Yeah, so they can add other stuff. Yeah. So because it's being absorbed, there have been some cancellations. I sent you guys the article. Apparently, we were supposed to be getting another season of Dexter New Blood.
We talked about this in a Chop Talk a long time ago.
Yeah,
Of
we
the son
probably
taking over the legacy.
Yeah.
and we probably all talked about how that was dumb and we didn't.
Yeah,
want
big
that,
old
but-
stupid.
Maybe
idea.
Dexter coming back as his passenger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not happening because
I think we're good.
new bosses are in charge. Let the Right One In. Not only did it get canceled after just the one season, it's now been pulled off of Showtime. So because it never got a physical media
you
release,
sure wanna
the
pull your
show
joke?
is now just impossible to watch unless you pirate it.
Oh,
Well,
that's so weird. Why do they? Oh, royalties, right?
yeah, it's a tax thing and paying
dude.
royalties. The new management is like, well, we don't want to pay the people involved with that show because we don't want to continue with it, so we're going to scrap it. And then what'll happen is that a service like Tubi or Pluto will then pay pay to show that show with ads. They'll pay Paramount or whatever to then get that show, and so it'll probably pop up again on one of those other services with ads.
I think some of those companies are owned, like secretly, like backdoor owned by these bigger
subsidiaries.
Yeah.
companies.
I think I was at Universal Studios
You
on the
got
studio.
backdoor owned.
Well, I was on the studio tour, and I think I saw that's when I first had that realization that every the chain goes all the way up to Comcast, and because it was Universal and NBC, Comcast company, it's all these subsidiaries and all this, and I was like,
It's like
oh,
it's
shit.
like how in 30 Rock everything's owned by the Shineheart wine or the wig company.
Yeah.
Making a lot of 30 Rock. Have you been rewatching 30 Rock, or
No,
just have
just
Alec
30
Baldwin on the brain for absolutely no reason?
No reason. Oh, that's
Listen here,
funny.
I am Liz Lemon.
And there ain't no lemon. Never mind.
Yeah. There ain't no lemon.
There ain't no lemon. We're done.
So you guys are
Liz
fans
Lemon
of,
party is
of
mandatory.
the Egg Boy, right? Robert Eggers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
His Nosferatu is getting closer and closer to being a real thing because Willem Dafoe has officially joined the cast. Surprisingly,
I think
not
he got
as
snubbed,
Count
man.
Orlok, but you think he got snubbed for the Northman?
Yeah.
I think a lot
Yeah.
of people agree with you,
Fuck, man.
At least
especially
visuals.
for cinematography.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. Fucking.
It's because he's a horror guy, and I
horror.
know, I know
is
that,
such
but
a-
I'm saying it's because his oeuvre has been through the horror genre. I don't think that it would even showed up on anybody's radar. Plus, it came out early enough in the year that it's like we were talking about last week, that the conversation on it had died so much that by the time it came time to send out screeners and get people to watch the movie, a million other things had come out.
That should have been in their best adapted.
I definitely want to rewatch it because I think Eggers did a commentary for it, and I would really be interested to hear him talk
just
about his process and
that-
the
that-
research and everything.
That video we watched, I think he sent it to me, or we sent it got sent around, of that scene on the boat where it comes in from the bushes, and then they had to get on the boat, and it had zoom through just watching them break down that one scene.
And
was
talking
fucking
about
fantastic.
the research that went into every piece of clothing and jewelry
fucking
and how the
great,
boat was
yeah.
made and all of that.
Yeah, that could have been nominated for every category easily, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, and something like Infinity Pool. I just have a huge respect for the Skarsgård family in general, and Alexander Skarsgård was somebody that I never gave a shit about. I was just like, oh, he's just that pretty boy from True Blood. Was he in
True Blood.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, he's actually a good actor who also is hot and buff.
And just
Yeah.
a mountain of meat.
Yeah. So, Nosferatu. That's happening.
Right on.
With a different Skarsgård, the Bill, Egg Boy. And then I know you've been watching The Last of Us. I don't know if you watched the new episode.
I haven't
I
watched
did.
any of it.
You are crazy. but-
Yeah.
I do this every time
I-
a show comes out.
I have no familiarity with the game, so my enjoyment of it or knowledge of it comes strictly from this show, so I don't have anything to compare it to. I don't know if that's something that people are doing or if people give a shit about that comparison.
Mhm.
But for me, it's pure show, and I'm enjoying it as just that.
Yeah.
That could be because, I was telling you the other day about that book I just read called "What Moves the Dead." It's fucking crazy similar how much it's like this show and I guess game, to the point where Barnes and Noble sent me an email and was like, don't be the last of us to read this book. I was
Yeah.
like, you motherfuckers, you got me. And I did read that book.
I mean, I know the Usher show is happening. I was like, I wouldn't be shocked if somebody decided they wanted to adapt that book on the coattails of The Last of Us being so successful.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because so far I think it's going to end up being one of those shows that, maybe not Game of Thrones level, but actually maybe. I mean, at this point, I've been blown away by how nonstop the conversation around it has been.
Really?
And like I said, I finished the episode
I know
on
you.
Sunday.
That's the only person I know that's watched it.
Well, so yeah, I watched it on Sunday, and I knew that you probably hadn't checked it out yet. So I was like, I'm gonna go on Twitter and see if maybe somebody has made some comment on it, because I felt like I was very, it's a very emotionally heartfelt and devastating episode, and I was like, I wonder if everybody feels the same way. And literally, my entire Twitter feed was everybody from all walks of life talking about how fucking amazing this show has been. Yes, there are the communities of people who are diehard video game fans who say like, oh, I wish it would follow a little bit more closely to the game.
But it's an adaptation. If you want beat for beat for movie to game, then play the game.
And also, it's an
doesn't work.
adaptation made by the guy who created the game. Like
Oh,
I think it's
really?
Neil Druckmann. I think it's Neil Druckmann. He is the guy who made the story of the game and like was like, if we're gonna adapt this, I need to be involved and I need to be
Fuck
shepherding
yeah,
the whole
dude.
thing. And every decision that's made in terms of like this third episode takes. Did you play The Last of Us?
Yes.
So it takes. It's not a spoiler really. It's just that it takes the Bill character that you run into for like a brief moment, and makes a whole episode about that character.
Oh, wow.
Because really, you only see Bill. You meet Bill. He briefly references that he had a partner. You see that his partner Frank is like hanging from the rafters, like he hanged himself at some point. They took that and went, "That's fucking dark. Let's take that.
Let's expand it
and expand it into this beautiful love story." Nick Offerman, like it's
Yeah, all I've been seeing is just the Nick Offerman memes all over the internet, and I'm like, I'm gonna pretend like I don't know anything. I'm just gonna wait. I think
it's one of those episodes of
Yeah.
TV. I told Steven it's going to be like Ozymandias for Breaking Bad, where it just stands out as like, not only is this a good installment of a fantastic show, but this is also probably gonna live on as one of the best episodes of television. And a lot of people like
It's such a character piece, and it's
and a lot of people are like, oh, well, it didn't drive the story forward. And it's like, yeah, but The Last of Us is not a like crazy, it's about the characters, and it's about.
that's not true.
Oh, that it doesn't move the plot. Yeah, it does.
It's not a ton, sure.
Yeah, without getting too deep into a whole
Yeah.
Last of Us discussion, it does change the Joel character, and it does change the Ellie character, and it makes sense why this happened. But anyway,
it's really funny that
also
all
the homophobes have been review bombing this newest episode.
fuck those people. But also, I think it's really funny that all the Parks and Rec people are like just like killing it in new
Yeah,
shows.
so I
'cause
sent him a
it's-
thing. So it's Adam Scott in Severance, Aubrey Plaza in White Lotus,
Yeah.
and Nick Offerman in this, and I would say
Devs,
Devs. Yeah.
He's good, dude.
Yeah.
And he's fucking fantastic.
It's time for Amy Poehler to take a dark turn.
I watched an episode of Parks right before watching this, not knowing that he was in it.
Oh yeah.
And so when he showed up, I was like, oh, this is fucking weird, because I just watched goofy ass Ron do his thing, all the bacon and eggs episode.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then go to this, and I was like, this is
So I got Ron right there.
very different.
Oh yeah, you do. I also think that Pedro Pascal must have something written in his contract where it's like, if I can just play a character who says very few words and is in charge of taking care of like a littler, like a child of some sort. Like
yeah.
that's
Well, we
the
saw
kind.
what happens when he talks a lot in Wonder Woman 84.
True. Super charming guy. But the reason I brought all this up, and really go watch The Last of Us if you haven't already, John. The audience has grown every weekend. It went from, I think, 4.5 million at its premiere to, I think, something like 5.7 million on its second weekend, up to now 6.4 million for episode 3, which is doing like Walking Dead number. Those are like big Walking Dead numbers.
It's funny because this feels similar to that in a lot of ways.
But the early Walking Dead, to me, like where it was
Where
like
it's popping off.
Yeah, where you were like, holy shit, this is, especially that first season of Walking Dead. Like it does feel very similar.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that they have been able to take this genre and again twist it. We talk about this genre a lot and how it's so dead.
Yeah.
But there's certain things like, oh, it's not here anymore, but Girl with All the Gifts, and now this, where it's like, yeah, sure, it's zombies, but kind of. You know what I mean? And so I love that.
But that's not what it's about. It's about.
But
the
it's
people.
twisting it too. It's not just Romero ghouls.
Yeah.
There's something more to it. Or
Very
28
cool,
Days.
very cool practical effects in this show too.
And gnarly to look at. Almost like fucking Annihilation. When they
Oh
find
yeah,
the-
when he's all grown out
Yeah.
in the wall
Yeah.
and shit. Yeah.
It's like, oh fuck.
I think you'd be interested in attempting to play the game.
Probably.
It's I mean, that's why I rolled my eyes so hard when this got announced as a show, because I think The Last of Us is probably my favorite video game of all time. I had such an amazing experience. It was the first game I got with my PS4, and I like fell in love with it. I haven't played part 2, but now that they have already greenlit this for a season 2 that's going to adapt part 2, I'm debating
if it's better to know and play it.
Yeah, but also I played The Last of Us so long ago that I don't remember all the plot beats, and the show has already gone in enough of a different direction with things that I'm not too concerned. But
Do you think that maybe, I mean, obviously it's got to stick to the landing at the end here, but best video game adaptation?
oh yeah,
I mean, I haven't watched any of it yet.
I mean, we haven't seen the Super Mario Brothers movie, so
Fair enough.
we don't know for sure.
It's just going to be a blast. I already know it.
But yeah, Mike Flanagan called this new episode the best episode of television he thinks he's ever seen, which is high praise from a man who has made some of the best episodes of television I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Wasn't here. This is no funeral home, but
Right.
Well, now we can get into the big news for this week. Yesterday, James Gunn and Peter Safran unveiled their new DC slate. We've been waiting.
It's supposed to be like a 10-year plan, but it doesn't seem like a ton of stuff.
Well,
I think that's
they're
right.
So it's a 10-year plan where I feel like they've he's only unveiled the first chapter of that plan.
I see. Which they're calling Gods and Monsters. Which
yeah.
is super dope.
So
Yeah.
all of the names of things come from comic runs that had those same names, but then Gods and Monsters obviously traces back to Frankenstein, and the whole Universal thing in general, which is funny because this is Warner Brothers, so they should get sued.
Them, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, so he announced the new slate, and I'll go kind of through it without getting into a crazy amount of detail, but we probably will anyway.
So from what I was reading, they are still doing the current stuff, but calling it DC something else, right?
Elseworlds.
Yes.
So Elseworlds is also a thing from the comics where,
Batmanson's
it's
still
like
going
parallel
on.
universes. So yeah, the Batman is officially titled The Batman Part 2.
And that'll be Elseworlds?
Yeah, so that'll be part of Elseworlds. Joker Fully Ado is going to be part of Elseworlds. And basically they said there will always be room for Elseworlds stories, but they have to be so knock it out of the park good in concept that they're worth making. If they don't, otherwise we should be focusing on making things that fit into this plan. So rather than calling them phases, they're calling these chapters. So chapter 1, yes, is Gods and Monsters. This is going to include a 7-episode animated series called Creature Commandos, written by Gunn. It's already in production. It's about a team of classic monsters assembled to fight Nazis. It looks like it'll have the Weasel character that we saw in Suicide Squad. And the idea here is that they're looking to cast people who will not only be able to voice the characters in animation, but then play those same characters in live action if
That's
they
rad.
want to switch them over, which I think is a really cool idea. Just
Smart.
as long as they get people who actually can voice act, because the whole trend these days is like just get famous actors to voice everything, and it's like don't get real voice actors. No, don't get real voice actors.
Thank you for the
gotcha.
live grammar correction.
Something that I think is very interesting is that we are not. It doesn't seem like this is a complete reboot, refresh of every aspect
Super
of
weird,
the DC
yeah.
universe,
Still
because
very
we are
confusing.
getting a Waller spin-off series for HBO Max. With Viola Davis returning as Amanda Waller. It's being written by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen.
And Peacemaker's getting a season 2, right?
And Peacemaker's getting a season 2, which I loved the first season, so I'm down for that. The biggest news, which everybody was waiting for, was what the fuck's happening with Superman. We are getting a new Superman movie that's going to be the top priority for this DC universe. It's called Superman Legacy. It is going to be written by Gunn, but it's not confirmed whether or not he's going to be directing it. All we know about it is that it is not an origin story, and that it focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. He's the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He is kindness in a world that thinks that kindness is old-fashioned. So I think a lot of people who are bummed about the way that Superman was treated in the Snyderverse as being kind of a stoic, I'm gonna fucking kill you, Batman kind of guy. They seem to be trying to get Superman, back in the direction of what
The Boy
people like
Scout.
about Superman. Yeah. Some comments from James Gunn. He said that Henry Cavill was never fired from the role of Superman. He just was never hired for the role of Superman in their universe. And he straight up just said he got dicked around by the previous heads of this studio. And he was like, I'm sorry that happened, but for the direction we're going, Henry Cavill is not our Superman.
I think
he's not the person who's going to be playing him, and it's not the person that he's like, basically for the overall casting of all these projects, he was like, our imperative is making sure that we get the right director for the job. with the right material and what they want to direct and what they want to make and what they're passionate about, and then we make sure that the people who get cast are the right people for that director and their tone and their project.
Yeah,
and he was
I
like,
also
and I
heard
don't
they
want
want
it to feel
to-
homogenous. He was like, I want to bring in different voices and different.
I heard that he
styles
also
and
said they
stuff.
want to focus on the writing and like give the writer the forefront of these projects and
happy
not
with that.
start, because I guess he said he's seen other projects where they start shooting with 3/4 of a script. He's like, no, we're gonna make sure the writing is solid and then move forward.
Which makes sense because James Gunn,
He's a
like,
writer.
he's a writer.
And he's also meticulous.
He
Yeah.
also said, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong too, which this got me excited. He was saying that if a movie calls to be part of a different genre, he wants to fully go for it. And I mean, he didn't directly say Marvel, but basically what he was saying is we don't want to tiptoe and kind of touch on genres like Marvel has in the past, where we get bits of horror or bits of espionage.
Yeah, where it's like if you really squint, Winter Soldier is a spy espionage movie.
Right.
Yeah.
So he said if there is a genre that they want to dive into for a property, then they're going to fully dive into that. I was like, that's fucking cool. Like, let's get a horror.
Yeah, I'm super on board. My thought about this whole, like, because he said there are a lot of reasons why Henry Cavill was not the right person for their Superman. And based on this quote here about the whole balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing, I have a very strong feeling that they're going to go with a mixed race actor for this role, to really lean into this idea of him
Love that.
coming from different worlds.
Yeah.
As
and
someone
having-
mixed, love it.
yeah, and having that be a reflection of the struggle that real world mixed race people and people of different races besides, you know, classic white Superman go through. And yeah, that it to me, as soon as that clicked in my head, I was like, oh, that makes so much fucking sense.
Yeah.
And Tyler Hoechlin, who plays, he's from the Teen Wolf show, which now has a movie, by the way. So
Which
it's
now has
I've
a
heard
movie,
they have
Teen
and-
Wolf the movie, the show, the movie.
And Paramount also has another one called like Wolfpack or some shit. Like they
Yeah,
just
with
double
Sarah
down.
Michelle Gellar,
Yes.
apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what is happening?
He is Native American, is like half
he
Native
plays
American,
Superman.
half white, and plays Superman in and people really
Arrowverse.
like the Arrowverse version of Superman in that
Is
show.
the Arrowverse still happening?
It's wrapping up. Flash
Yeah.
is ending. Arrow ended a long time ago. I think they canceled Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah, and then there was another. Then there was obviously Constantine that got folded into that they
Yeah, I think
were
it's all
already trying to
ending with
scrape the
Flash.
bottom of the barrel to get everything to work anyway.
And
Um,
Supergirl,
Yeah, which was a different network, I think.
but then they pulled
But
it
then
in.
they rolled it in.
Yeah.
with their,
Yeah.
like Crisis on Infinite Earths thing. But
I do think that.
Holy cow.
I mean, as the conversation that we had a few weeks ago about Cavill kind of, getting dicked over, I don't think any of us blamed Gunn at that point. I mean,
No.
it was obviously the fault
none of
of
us
Dwayne.
did. Everybody
it's-
on the internet did.
but it was Dwayne Johnson's fault. Dwayne Johnson ran with this.
I think
like,
that part, but
without
everything before that
like,
too.
without power. Like he was told, like, "Hey, don't include any of this stuff. You don't know what you're gonna get." And then he was like, "Oh no, we'll shoot it," and included it in the film anyway.
Yeah, and now
But that's dead too, right? Black Adam, like that's.
Yeah, now all of these actors are being asked, because this is all interviewers do now, is they just ask every actor a million superhero questions and Marvel DC questions because it gets clicks and it's all anybody ever fucking talks about. So anytime Dave Bautista's in an interview for something, they're not asking him about Knock at the Cabin, which comes out tomorrow and apparently is really good, the new M. Night
Oh,
Shyamalan
shit.
movie.
Let's go.
And he's apparently great in it. Everybody's asking him,
What's up with Guardians 3?
yeah, what's up with Guardians and what are you gonna do after that? And are you would you play Lex Luthor? He's like, sure, I guess. If James Gunn wants me to. Would you play Bane? Oh, I guess if James Gunn wants me to. It's like, fucking ask better questions, you dumb shits. But
Would you wear a toupee?
but yeah, like Momoa has basically said, like, yeah, my Aquaman's still happening, and we planned this as a trilogy. And Gunn is like, yeah, we might end up doing that as a trilogy.
It's just confusing, I guess, from a viewer's perspective, where it's like some stuff is discontinuing
over,
and
yeah.
you're killing the Snyderverse, but then also some of it you're not. And so, like, yeah, the Aquaman movies aren't directly connected, but Aquaman specifically by Momoa is.
They're saying
And so
at the end of the
it's weird.
They're saying at the end of the Flash is going to be the soft reset that fixes all of that.
Well, and apparently it's still being,
I can't believe
according
that
to
was still
rumored
happening.
reports, it's potentially still being messed with, like in terms of which cameos show up in that movie and what it sets up. And I'm like, that's crazy. But Yeah, that Superman, I'm excited. It's been a long time since we've had a straight up Superman movie, and I'm a fan of Superman. I grew up with Superman. I'm a big fan. I loved Smallville. Yeah, I was obsessed with it.
I'm looking
I'm a big fan.
at 6 different Smallville seasons right now.
Yeah, baby. And then Supergirl is getting a show, right?
Yeah,
It's like a real dark show.
So, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. It's going to take cues from the recent Tom King written miniseries. This is going to be a different take, and basically the idea behind this is that Superman came to Earth as a little baby boy, got raised by some farmers in Kansas, and turned out to be a really solid, good human being. Supergirl, on the other hand, has been trapped on the last remnant of Krypton, this like rock, and has gone through hell for her entire life, and is just now making it to Earth, and so she's going to be like, a much more hardcore, jaded, fucked up version of Superman. That's cool. And not just a female carbon copy, which I think is really cool. Yeah, like you said. Greg Berlanti's long in the works Green Lantern TV series has been scrapped, but in its place we are supposed to be getting Lanterns, which is going to be a true detective style terrestrial based Green Lantern show, which sounds like the complete opposite of what the Green Lantern as a character is. He's
like a cosmic. He's like the cosmic side of.
But I could see this being something that starts very small
and
then expands into a bigger, obviously, and it's going to feature both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, Green Lanterns.
Okay,
so
from the Daily Show.
Yeah. That would be hilarious if they just cast not as Jon Stewart, because that is a black man. So maybe not cool, but
you picked the wrong late night host. The only one I think who would do that is Bill Maher. Bill Maher might try to be a black man for DC Universe.
Speaking of late night house, I heard James Corden's quitting.
Oh, really?
I don't like him, so I thought I'd share that with you.
I mean, I just don't care about late night in general. So.
Yeah.
The Authority we're getting is a movie based on a team of superheroes with rather extreme methods of protecting the planet. This is a 1990s imprint. And yeah, it's supposed to explore kind of the gray area of superpowered people, which, again, sounds very James Gunn in general.
Or The Boys-ish.
The Boys-ish, yeah. And then, oddly, we are getting a Gal Gadot she's a producer on a show called Paradise Lost that is going to be a Game of Thrones style HBO Max Wonder Woman show, but it's a prequel series set on Themyscira about like the inner workings of the Amazonians.
I mean, that's kind of the part that we all wanted more of too.
But weird that it's a prequel to something that is now dead.
Well, and also it doesn't sound like they're planning to bring Gal Gadot back as Wonder Woman at any point.
They just want her involved on
board. Yeah, they want her on board, maybe just as a formality. I don't know.
So weird.
We're getting yet another separate Batman.
Yes.
In a project called The Brave and the Bold, which I love that title because I liked The Brave and the Bold show, which was all about, and feels very James Gunn, which was all about bringing in the B, C, and D-list characters from DC and having them team up with Batman. This is going to be an introduction to the DCU Batman and also introduce Robin.
DCU?
The DC universe, or the DC extended universe, the movie verse.
Yeah.
I think he's just trying really hard not to have people call it the Gunverse or whatever.
Yeah.
Because he's like, that's not what it
Gunniverse.
is. But it's also going to introduce Robin, but the Damian Wayne version, who is the son of Bruce Wayne, and is, as James Gunn put it, a little son of a bitch. And that it's going to be a strange father and son story, which is not something that we've really seen in Batman.
Not directly.
Except for in the comics, yeah.
As mentioned previously, we are getting a sequel to The Batman Part 2. And then we are also getting an HBO Max Booster Gold series about a loser from the future who uses basic technology to come back to today and pretend to be a superhero. It is about a superhero with imposter syndrome.
One of the streamers that I follow is like campaigning heavily to try to get cast as Booster Gold. Will Neff.
Oh, yeah.
Is the Penguin show still happening?
Mm-hmm. With Colin Farrell, that's all supposed to be moving forward, just in this Elseworlds branding.
Okay.
Which I'm totally cool with. I mean, it's what I've said this entire time, which is like, just if somebody comes up with a cool enough side project in the DC universe, let them do that. It's not going to make the rest of this suffer if you do the rest of this right.
Yeah.
I think it's just when the Snyderverse sucked, and then things like The Batman and Joker were coming out, and people were like, these are way better. Let's do this. The final bit of news that's I think the most interesting to us is Swamp Thing. They're going to take another swing at Swamp Thing.
You're waiting. Go.
I've been
John's been biting his tongue to talk about.
Set him free, Anthony. Set him free.
So the person,
Johnny, I wish for your freedom. As I rub you off.
Fuck. I need to be set free.
So this will set you free right here. The person that is heavily in talks and is being considered for this is James Mangold.
Oh, really?
The man with the Midas touch.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And is this going to be a movie show?
I think the talks are
Swamper?
currently movie.
Because they already tried to do that show that lasted.
They also try to do
yeah,
movies.
Didn't even
one
make it through
season.
its whole season.
Yeah, so I mean, cool that they're trying another
Not
swing
the
at
James
at
you
horror.
Wanted.
Yeah.
But James Mangold, I mean,
I
he's
just
done
watched
some incredible things.
I just
Yeah.
watched Copland, and that's a fuck. And I think I asked you if you had seen it with
Is that Mangold?
Ray Liotta.
with Ray Liotta, De Niro, Stallone,
Shit.
Keitel. A fucking great movie. But yeah, Mangold's awesome. I'm really excited to see what he's. I mean, he's doing the new Indiana Jones, so it sounds like he'll be going right off of finishing up Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, to working on whatever this Swamp Thing is. But overall, I like James Gunn a lot. I think it's really cool that he's somebody who came up from trauma roots, like doing trauma movies like Romeo and Juliet, to doing things like Slither, to eventually getting up to he fucking wrote the live action Scooby-Doo movies, wrote Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. So kind of interesting that he is now taking over, where Snyder left off. But I think he's a dude that obviously is very passionate about the creative process, about working with talented people and talented creators. He seems to understand what is going to make this work. And also, he's like an inside man in terms of having worked with both Marvel and DC on big projects. So it's
Is actively still doing both.
Yeah, and he was like, this isn't going to be Marvel 2.0. Like, it's, while in a lot of ways it's going to feel that way, I think. I'm probably more excited about this than I am about the future of the MCU, because at this point, I think this is the best time to be refreshing the DC universe, because if they make these projects interesting and unique enough, I think it'll actually be really successful in combating against the homogenous kind of like samey feel of all of the Marvel stuff. Like,
And the meandering.
yeah, we were just
Right?
talking, like I watched Wakanda Forever last night, and I was like, yeah, I mean, the emotional stuff about Chadwick's passing and all that made me very emotional, but everything that happened in between, I was like, I couldn't give less of a shit about what's going on in this movie. And a lot of that, I think, is just, I'm just looking at just people jumping around, CG people jumping around in a CG fake world, and it ain't Avatar: The Way of Water, I'll tell you what, no matter how bad it wants to be.
Yeah, I feel like they had a really good direction, and Endgame took us to a point where it was like, that was fucking rad and a good cap to that
It was
saga.
the end game almost.
Yeah. And now it doesn't feel like we really know what we're doing.
I think Spider-Man knows what it's doing. I think the rest of it still needs a little time.
Yeah.
Well, that's because, there was also meddling in that movie, but at the end of the day, that movie was about making a good-ass Spider-Man movie and less about, like, let's shove in all these other... the characters that got shoved into that movie are other Spider-Men from other...
Aside from Doctor Strange.
I could get into a whole thing about that and Spider-Man, but Tobey Maguire did say
He'd come
if
back.
they called him up and said they wanted him for Secret Wars or some other Spider-Man thing, he'd be in to return, and... hey, if Raimi was involved in that too, sign me up. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. If you are very passionate about anything but Zack Snyder, please tell me how you feel about on this James Gunn DC announcement, because it's like any of these announcements where I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it, but I think the plan sounds sound. And
I think my concern when it was first announced was, are we going to get a bunch of Guardians movies? Or the Suicide Squad movies, which are very similar in a lot of ways. Sounds like that's not the case, and I am excited about that.
Well, it
because
seems
I
like
don't
he's
want
going.
just the same thing.
It seems like he's going to be involved in the Superman thing and like a couple of the TV shows, but it doesn't. It seems like he's trying to take more of a Kevin Feige role, and Kevin Feige isn't the guy like putting his stamp and his taste and his like spin on all these projects. He's the guy going.
What do you think?
Well, but I mean, I think it's more like he's going, Ryan Coogler, you have a really cool vision for Black Panther. Let's let you do Black Panther. Oh, the Russos, I've seen your good episodes of Arrested Development. How about you guys, and your paintball episodes of Community, how about you tackle some Captain America? Oh, you did that really well? Here's all the rest of this shit.
Cap us off, Cap.
So yeah, I think that's what Gunn is trying to do, is go, hey, I know a lot of people in the industry who are super fucking talented and are champing at the bit to make a really, really good Swamp Thing or Superman or whatever it is. Let's give them the chance. Let's give them the breathing room. Let's get rid of all this other bullshit, and let's try to move this thing forward in a successful direction.
I think they tried with Jeff Johns to do the same thing and tried to have some... Jeff Johns, his
problem was just that he had two first names as a name. Yeah,
he was the head of DC, like the actual comics division, for a very long time. And I think that people don't realize that DC Comics Detective Comics have gone through such a vast array of issues with trying to keep their continuity straight. Because they're doing all these different things.
Literal issues. It's just issue after issue.
Well, it's part of the reason why they went on Kaputski with all of it, and they were like, all right, we're starting over fresh. Here's New 52. And then that didn't even last, so they started pulling stuff back in because
that's how comics work.
Yeah. But it creates this weird like thing where all of it just kind of collapses in on itself. And like it has a lot of fun runs, and like the actual like experience of reading through the comics is entertaining, but it's entertaining just because of comics. Like, and there are cool stories that are involved in that. But if you try to like piece it all together in like this overarching thing, it doesn't work the same way that they have it in the MCU, where everything, as you said, is very homogenous and it feels like it's all of a piece.
I feel like people also don't know how to let stuff end.
Yeah,
and I think that goes a lot for the entertainment industry, like we talked about with Saw, or we talked about with Friday the 13th,
what it is, as long as it keeps making
Marvel.
Money.
Exactly, it's that like Captain America has now ended, but Chris Evans' run has ended. Captain America is going to continue, and they're going to keep doing that as long as they can.
And how long do you think it's going to be before they bring Chris Evans back?
Try to,
in some capacity.
Something, yeah. They're going to go back in time and see him fucking Peggy or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we need to just let stuff die, I guess. And it sucks and it's hard, but maybe that's what happened with the comics. Like, how long are you going to keep Superman going before it's just like, yeah, we've done this?
They literally did. They gave him a good endpoint.
Yeah.
They gave us All-Star Superman, and they give him fucking cancer.
Oh my God.
And it's one of the saddest runs of comics.
That's what I'd call a good endpoint.
But it's a finality. It's a finality.
Yeah, I'm saying it, and it's a beautiful run of comics. But basically just talking about the death of Superman and like how like he like did all of these fantastic things and him just like going out on his terms, which is really cool. And then they just reset shit and new Superman.
I think that all of this also ties back to what we were talking about with The Last of Us, where like people just have a very hard time understanding the difference between entertainment mediums and what an adaptation is. And a lot of people get so butthurt about like, you didn't one-to-one adapt my DC comics. It's like, how the fuck am I supposed to do that? These characters have been around for almost 100 years, some of them, and they've had so many different iterations. Every 10 years it's a different character because they're always bringing in new writers and new creators. And like that, movies work differently. And The Last of Us, it's like, yeah, they could have one-to-one adapted it, but instead they have a vision of how they want to explore these characters. If Gunn has a vision of how he wants to explore these characters in this world, that's cool. Let him. I mean, that's a cool way to do it. And there are inevitably going to be people who are like, yeah, but that's not what my Superman and these comics are. And
then go back and read the comics or go back and watch the movies. That's all fine. You can do those things.
But you gotta get mad about it on the internet, John. That's important.
Let's try something different, man. That's all I'm saying.
It's different mediums. You gotta make it conducive to that medium. Like it's gotta work. And video games have failed to make that transition so many fucking times.
Now you got fucking Warcraft, Assassin's Creed, the original Mario Brothers movie. You've got fucking all of the Resident Evil franchise.
Yeah, as much as I like that first one, like it's not a good adaptation of that game. It's not even an adaptation of that game.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, at the end of the day, it's
you played that game and you're like, where the fuck are the laser hallways?
Like, where's the goddamn laser hallways?
At the end of the day, it's the difference between Lorraine Warren and Miss Cleo. Different mediums.
I think that's a good place to move on to trivia.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
That's what we should call the show, you know, when it evolves from Porcelain Peak. We should call it Sad and Horny.
That's what I'm going to call my autobiography.
Sad and Horny, the Anthony Perez story.
Story of the Blob. Anyway, we had a trivia question last week, yes or no?
We did. The trivia question last week was, what Greek philosopher invented the concept of Atlantis? You guys had a couple guesses. I don't know if you remember what they were.
I said
not.
Aristotle.
I think I said Plato. I don't know.
The answer is Plato.
Oh, sweet.
It was indeed the Greek philosopher Plato. He invented the story of Atlantis, like I mentioned last week, to illustrate what can happen to a society if they get too big for their britches, they get too pompous. And it was really just kind of to win an argument. And people in the ancient aliens community and all that took it, you know, to the point where people are still to this day going like, Atlantis has got to be in the Atlantic Ocean in this spot. And it's like, no, some dude just made it up
It's fiction.
for some fun.
A fictional character.
But
Yes.
if you haven't watched the Atlantis The Lost Empire movie,
I heard it's good. Yeah, I never
it's
seen it.
pretty darn good. Considered a Disney flop, but I like it a lot. But yeah, your trivia question for this week, I got a new one.
Oh, wow.
Since we were talking about the history and some of the staples
This is
of
a found
the
footage.
found footage genre, I
I tried
wanted
to find like a definitive answer of like the first found footage movie, and there's not like a definitive answer, it seems like. And I was also seeing something that it was originally used as a term for a different genre.
so
And I didn't really understand the distinction because this is
So-
like discovered footage.
Yeah, so the idea for the original usage of found footage was literally footage, like film you found, like stuff that you
like
found
actual
and collected and put together and made a
Oh,
movie
I
out
see.
of.
So what would be now called like a compilation or like a recut?
Yeah, and some people kind of still disagree with the whole found footage terminology for this genre. But yeah, the question is, for all intents and purposes, based on the research I did, it looks like the first found footage movie that would be considered found footage had a title card in the beginning that, you know, led you to believe it was all real, was in 1961. And do you guys know what this movie was called?
Was it the Orson Welles one?
It is not. That one was actually from the 70s, so this one's a little bit earlier, but that did pop up in my research, yeah. And that recently got released. It was like
2018.
lost
Yeah.
for a while or something, yeah.
Weird. I was like, what the fuck? What's the name of the found footage movie?
Yeah, from 1961. It's
Wow.
not horror, but it is a found footage feature film.
The found footage feature film.
The foreign found footage feature.
All right, well, you will find out next week what the real answer is. I'm going to tell you right off the bat that you're both wrong.
Damn it.
Oh, I thought I had it.
We'll go ahead and get started with horror edition of Trivial Pursuit. We're going to read a category, then go in a circle reading to each other with me to John, John to Anthony, and Anthony back to me.
Tone's on the verge of a streak.
Yes, I won last week, so I might be streaking. Are we ready with that first category? John.
I'm so witty.
So witty. You witty?
Monster category.
John, what actor played Thomas, the adult companion of Abby, in Let Me In? Thomas, John. Who was the adult companion?
Tomas.
I don't know.
I don't remember this.
I don't
This
know.
is the Eric Andre skit, right? Where he's at the gate.
Let me in.
I know this name and I know who it is, but I don't remember.
Directed by Matt Reeves, director of the
I
Batman
don't-
Part 2.
I don't know.
It is Richard Jenkins.
It was Richard Jenkins. Yeah.
Kevin
I totally
was-
forgot that
yes,
too.
Yes, I know who Richard Jenkins is. I can see it in my head now.
You son of a bitch, I know who Richard Jenkins is.
Don't you dare.
You spent too much time forgetting who Richard Jenkins is.
All right. This one is going to be very specific.
Okay.
In Jaws, what famous line does Police Chief Brody say to Quint upon first seeing the shark?
Oh, fuck.
Is it you're gonna need a bigger boat?
It is indeed, you're going to need a bigger boat.
Hell yeah. I'd be so embarrassed if I got that wrong. That's one of those classic, like,
Oh,
it's not
we're gonna-
Luke, I
we're-
am your father. It's no, I am your father.
Yeah.
Classic.
Classic. Tone,
I believe it's get away from her, you bitch.
to what country is protagonist Rob preparing to relocate at the start of, speaking of Matt Reeves, Cloverfield from
shit.
2008?
I believe it is Japan.
It is indeed Japan.
Are we all? Oh no, you're not. on the board.
I'm not on the board. Mine was more.
Two tones are on the board. And we're moving into
Gore / disturbing.
John, who directed the Grindhouse 2007 fake trailer for Werewolf Woman of the SS.
Ooh, I do know. I know.
Who is that?
Is somebody's phone on the floor?
No, it's my iPad, I think.
Oh, what the fuck?
Dude, I thought we were fucking getting McPherson.
Okay, we're getting McFeed.
Like some sort of nanny.
Yes.
Um,
And I'll give you a hint here. It is a director that you do know. Like, it's not something crazy obscure. I wouldn't even say it's obscure, to be honest with you.
so Werewolf.
Yeah. Werewolf Women of the SS.
I don't think it'd be Quentin because Quentin is director
dog.
of one of the films.
Oh, what?
I said a dog.
Oh, my dog.
My dog.
Yes, my dog. That's my dog. That's actually my dog.
Who would do something like that?
Who would make something like that?
I got my sister this week with a classic knock knock. She said, "Who's there?" I said, "Ah." She said, "Ah, who?" I said, "Where was the Lord?" She was very hesitant though. Like I was gonna, like people don't want to do knock knock jokes. Like you're gonna punch them.
My favorite is I got a knock knock joke. But you got to start it. Who's there?
That's funny. I don't know. You told me you had to go.
Got him.
Craven?
It is Rob Zombie.
John Bear. Bear. Bear.
We said we wanted to get more musical.
Nah.
We're doing it. We're doing a good job.
In your hair.
These are my heads.
Anthony, what is the name of the sinister club which kidnaps victims in the Hostel series from 2005 to 2011?
Oh, damn.
That's good trivia.
I feel like it's something
Oi,
like,
it is good trivia.
I feel like it's something to do with like hunting, like elite hunting or something like that, like elite hunting club. Hunters Anonymous.
I would see you're all over it. Just put it together and say it.
Is elite part of it?
Mm-hmm.
Hunting?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say squad, and I know that's not right. Elite hunting.
You've said all the components.
Club?
Uh-huh.
Elite hunting club?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Hey, don't be helping him, dude.
Damn.
It's cutthroat this season.
I'm shocked that was so difficult for me because I'm such a massive fan of visionary director Eli Roth.
Hey, speaking of visionary director,
Yeah, this is a great segue. If you want to go to porcelainpeakshop.com, we have a redesigned store page with new merch that John and I collaborated on. We wanted to pick something that we regularly bring up on the show as a bit for some real stylish, comfortable merch. We went with visionary director, so we have a really cool regular tee, long sleeve tee, and a classic pullover.
I wish that Spring would be like, here's the image, and we can have like the space image, the skull image, the cremated image, and then when you go to it, it could be like here,
All the options for the clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because it like you said, like the store gets so messy if you have to have the option for everything, and it's like I don't know.
Yeah, I've slimmed it down to just the classic stuff, and I'll probably be adding some more soon. But our
I want to get one of
mission,
the space ones. Can we still get the space ones?
I mean, we have access to everything,
Oh.
but
Sneaky.
Yeah, so go check those out. If you end up getting one, please let us know. And if you have any problems with your orders, also please let Teespring know.
Yeah, take a
It's their
picture
fucking fault.
and tag us in it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and we went that because we're always joking about these visionary directors.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to get one too.
But Tone, you are not going to believe what your next question is.
Okay.
I swear to Glob. The film Cannibal Holocaust from 1980 made use of what style of filmmaking?
Found footage.
Yeah, what are the fucking odds? Found footage. It explains what happened to a missing American film crew.
That would have been even crazier because we were supposed to talk about it this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now this is a good time to also mention we're not fucking talking about Cannibal Holocaust.
We know it's a found footage classic, but I just don't think any of us are
I think it
really
makes
in the
it.
mood.
I mean,
Don't wanna watch
there's
animals be
there's
tortured
real
and
life
killed.
legit animals being killed in that movie, and it's just pretty fucked
that's
up.
right.
And I've
I'm
tried
all
to get
set
through
on
it
that.
before, and it's just not really my bag, baby.
Same.
So we decided we were going to skip over it for marginally more entertaining films.
Right on. Did Anthony get his last one?
Yeah, the Elite Hunting Club.
That's right. Yeah. So we are tied at 2.
I got nothing.
Making me sweat.
Yep. And we're moving into psychological, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay, John, your question is: in the climactic pool scene, the titular entity of It Follows uses what form to attack Jay?
And don't be afraid to shoot the outside, Jay.
I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew it.
Like her grandma?
Oh, her father, Faja.
Yeah, there's this whole weird like undercurrent of like maybe her father abused her or something, but it's like very, very lightly explored in the movie. There's like 2 points where she sees her father as the It Follows thing.
Yeah.
As the supernaturally transmitted disease.
I feel like
Infection.
I feel like my stuff's been
Staph
tough.
infection. Hey,
I
man,
mean, all gettable, but yeah, you gotta really know those.
Yeah.
you've got to reach.
Anthony, what late night talk show host was Jack Nicholson's famous "Here's Johnny" line in The Shining in reference to?
Well, boys, it's a really big show with Johnny Carson.
Is indeed Johnny Carson. Announcer Ed McMahon originated the line for the opening introduction on The Tonight Show.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
Here's Johnny. Yeah, probably more famous now from The Shining than it ever was from Johnny Carson, but I could also just be saying that because I ain't old as dirt.
You ain't no
He
boomer.
hosted that show for hell long.
Yeah. Tone. What is the name of the fictional preserve in which the titular settlement of The Village from 2004 is set?
What's the name of the reserve?
Yes.
Read it again.
What is the name of the fictional preserve? So I think it's asking like the it's not a jelly, it's not a jam.
It's a jar of preserves.
Yeah. What is the fictional area, the preserve that they live on, in which the titular settlement of The Village is set? This is very similar to my Elite Hunting Club in that it's super specific and
The forest.
the answer is Walker Wildlife Preserve, Texas Ranger.
Dang it. Takes the lead.
He does.
Damn it. I'm sitting at 2. Anthony's at 3. John is at Gentleman's Goose Egg. And we're moving into paranormal. John and the Omen from 1976. For what country is Richard Thorne the ambassador to Great Britain?
The United States?
That is correct, and you're on the board.
It's all for you, Damien.
The game's not over, dude.
Oh, for me? Oh, no, because I'm out.
No. He's got to get 4.
He's got to get 4 right now because his next question is
Anything can happen in the
Annabelle
next
from
5
2014 was a spin-off of what 2013 horror film?
And now you're out.
Yeah.
The Conjuring
It's The Conjuring.
by James Wan. Check out all of last month's episodes
Hey.
on James
Everything but
Wanuary.
The Conjuring.
We've already covered it.
True.
Tone, for your paranormal activity question in Mama from 2013. For how many years are Victoria and Lily missing?
Mama. Mamma mia.
1.
Ooh. Should have thought back to old David Bowie because it was 5 years.
And now I'm going to cry.
Is this sad?
Andy's at 4. I am still sitting at 2. John,
Drinking
you are at
milkshakes
1. And
cold
we're
and
moving
long.
into Killer.
Indeed it is.
John, what character in Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood from 88, has telekinetic powers?
I think I've seen this one once.
We will not accept not Carrie.
Not Slytherin.
Oh, it's
Yeah, I think you probably saw it once when we talked about this franchise.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's not Tommy Jarvis, but I'm gonna say Tommy Jarvis.
It is Tina Shepard.
And we all forgot because that was a dumb one.
Because nobody cares no more.
Nobody knows.
Anthony, in this question that doesn't actually have an answer, in what Halloween film does antagonist Michael Myers not appear?
Again?
Must be Halloween 3, the season of the witch.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. It is the only film in the series not to feature Michael Myers, which is not true because he's on the television.
Technically, yep. And I stand by that.
I'm glad
That's
you
the
feel
win,
so
though.
strongly. Oh,
Hey, you already won.
damn.
We have a whole round of pity questions
You
with
know
a
what?
potential sweep on the line.
You know what, guys? I would just like to thank the Academy. Tone, what is the... Well, I already won, so it doesn't matter. What is the name of the criminal who becomes Chucky in the Child's Play series from 1988 to 2023?
Yeah.
to still ongoing. To dash blank.
Charles Lee Ray.
It is indeed fucking Charles Lee Ray.
Sweet.
Give me the power, I beg of you.
Anthony's got 5. I've got 3. John, you've got the 1.
Mm-hmm.
And we're moving into international. John, what gender is the vengeful spirit in Ju-on from 2002?
It's a little girl boy.
You can't do that.
I mean either male or female from you.
NB.
Can you please respect this ghost's pronouns, John?
He's a boy?
I mean either male or female from you.
I say boy? Male?
It is female.
Show me Gerboy.
I think that's a type of baby food, isn't it?
Maybe give some kind of an accent, like a Creole accent.
Hey, good
You might
boy.
be good day, good boy. Yeah, went down to the store and I got that damn good boy.
Oh, no,
Back
it's
to the
boom
baby.
hour, huh?
Let's go.
Oh,
I got another question.
Anthony, what is the name of the American chemical weapon the government releases to combat the creature in Bong Joon-ho's The Host from 2006?
Ooh, for the sweep, buddy. Pressure's on.
But it's gettable. It's a gettable one.
I feel like it's something.
Chemical
It's Powerpuff Girls. Don't get it twisted. I feel like it's something like Agent Yellow.
It is Agent Yellow.
Damn! For the sweep.
Good job.
The return of the cleaning lady. She does.
Return of the Mac.
Tone, for your international question. What medical procedure does La Femme try to perform using scissors in Inside from 2007?
A birth, like a cesarean.
Yep, you got it. That's C-section.
Yes.
Tries to take that baby out.
All right. So I didn't do too bad. What did I get?
Well-
1, 2,
4, I think.
3,
Right?
4. Yeah. I ain't mad about it.
You're out here just trying to declare a thumb war.
Now, I'm just gonna say right now, nobody fucking try to Andrea Rice Barome here and try to come after my my win. Okay. I try to pick it apart. You know, did I convince a bunch of my rich social media friends to give me the answers to the trivia? Who knows? Who can say? But I think at the end of the day, I deserve it.
You have rich social media friends.
Don't forget about the little people.
Because we could use some fun. Our pets' heads are falling. Well, congratulations on your win and your sweep. We'd have to check the data, but that might be the first sweep of the
new season.
Yeah, the season.
I don't
know.
No, it definitely is not. But we also played on much softer trivia previous to this.
Fair enough. Anyway, either way, congratulations. You did good. Some of those were very tricky, and that will wrap it up for trivia. We're gonna get started with our main discussion right after a short break.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelainpeak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelainpeak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that brief break. We're going to get started with our main discussion and kicking off Found Footage February, talking about...
baby.
Yeah, our favorite thing here. Talking about the McPherson tape and the Blair Witch Project. I say we get started with McPherson. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so from my understanding, this movie and what we have is bootleg. Like, people pass this around, and there's not an actual copy of this movie, and so I think the HD restoration, what we watched, is based off bootleg copies of this movie.
Eventually the original director, Dean Aliotto, he was able to obtain the bootleg and restore it to basically he finally got a hold of the bootleg after this had been circulating around, all over the place in various forms for a while.
Really cool way for this movie to circulate specifically because of the nature of it.
Yeah.
And also unlike something like we'll get to with the Blair Witch Project, where all of the hype and urban legend viral marketing, as it would become, was intentional in that respect. In this, it feels a lot more like these guys put this together and then it kind of accidentally spread as this, maybe this is real, maybe this isn't, sort of story. But yeah, originally this was just titled UFO Abduction. That's what the official real title of this movie is.
It also
UFO
shows up that way on
Abduction.
Shudder when you open it up first, I believe.
Yeah, but on the little card thing, I think it still says McPherson tape, which I was really confused about because none of the characters in this movie have the last name McPherson. So I was like, why the fuck is it called the McPherson tape? From what I was able to piece together, that just happened during the bootleg, the bootlegs being passed around. Nobody knew what the fuck the movie was called. And so at some point, maybe because of the person who bootlegged it or some service it was on, it got tagged with the McPherson tape, and that's the version that got spread to the most people.
Maybe that was the name of the person that bootlegged.
Yeah, that bootlegged it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is maybe somebody connected to it. Maybe somebody checked the metadata on, I mean, this is before I think there was metadata on these kind of things, but saw McPherson written and was like, this must be called the McPherson tape.
Yeah.
And that's what it's been more commonly known as. And I also think that's an easier way to remember this movie because UFO Abduction is, pretty by the books when it comes to naming your movie.
What's the the internet marketing, where if you search for something it comes up with too many results? It's SRI or some shit.
SEO. Search
SEO.
engine optimization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Real bad on UFO abduction.
You like our favorite band, Brand New.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie came out in 1989. As we discussed earlier in Chop Talk, we considered, trying to go back to the very first found footage horror movie, which in terms of horror is most likely Cannibal Holocaust. We decided that none of us really were in the mood to watch that. There are, there's a constant battle, of what the actual real first found footage movie was, but this is one of the very early ones and also seems to have in some way influenced things like the Blair Witch Project, because it is a very similar, some people are just kind of hanging out and then they wander into the woods, they see some creepy shit, and then things go haywire and it's a lot of shaky cam and you can't tell what's going on and lots of people screaming.
What it kind of reminded me of a little bit too was Coherence.
Yeah, because of all of
lights,
this conversation
the weird
of the
shit,
people in the kitchen, and I think
going
Coherence
out.
is a million times better movie.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, it's the difference between comparing something that somebody made with a handy cam and something that is literally a 5 out of 5.
Well, and also, I mean that is a good connection to make though, because I do feel like Coherence owes a debt to found footage in terms of like that feels very, even things like The Office. I feel like somehow spawn out of this idea of like this found footage where it's documentary style. Like that's basically what they were trying to do.
Breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, and really trying to immerse the audience, by saying, oh, this isn't just your standard horror movie. This is, one of those In Search of documentaries, a series that you see on TV. But this thing is 66 minutes long, so if you haven't checked it out and you're in the mood for, what I said to you is I feel like this movie is admirable, but not good.
Yeah.
It's admirable in that, for being 1989, obviously on a very
excellent year.
Yeah, obviously on a very small budget. I don't think that it's quite as terrible as, I mean, you said it's almost Axum level. I don't think it's even remotely close to being.
You
as
can
bad as
hear
that,
all the
but-
dialogue in this.
Also, I don't think
terms of
the
the way it
acting
looks.
is terrible. I mean, there are some
Yeah.
people who are pretty good in this.
The mom's not
she
bad.
She was
She's
the
so fucking funny. It's Los in the house.
yeah, she was the standout.
That's crap.
But yeah, I mean,
bring that thing in here.
very roughly, this movie opens in classic found footage movie style with a brief introduction that purports that this is one of the found tapes of a real UFO encounter. Talks a bit about Project Blue Book, which is stuff that we've gone into in our previous UFO investigation.
It's also where you go to try to get like the value for your car.
Oh yeah.
Or to take college exams.
So yeah, on the evening of October 8th, 1983, the Van Hees family gathers in their house. Michael is using his handheld camera to record the night's events, much to the amusement and irritation of his family. The evening is pretty uneventful until they go to inspect a breaker outside and are startled by a red light that passes overhead. Curious, they walk around the property to investigate.
And they find Roxanne.
While walking...
Hey, you don't have to turn that off.
Just like singing that song and then the light sucks you up. They chat a bit about, I think some of the dialogue feels very like I was wondering while I was watching this, and they are actors. I was like, is this an actual family that just filmed a movie together?
Parts of it, totally, yeah.
Where they're talking about like, I got to be home because mom drinks too much when I'm not home, and like them kind of arguing about like
I use
well-being of the mom,
protection. Or I would use protection.
Yeah, that shit was funny. And
Yeah,
a lot of that felt pretty
either
natural.
like close guy friends or like real brothers in a lot of parts like that. But yeah, eventually they're wandering through the woods and they find a spaceship, and little rubber suit children come out, little aliens. And basically, yeah, the rest of the movie is they run back to the house. They're trying to convince everybody that they saw some aliens out there, and everybody just screams and runs around the house for the rest of the movie until the end when they're like, yeah, I think everything's chill. And then at one point, some of the characters bring an injured alien that I think they
shot
shoot it.
yeah.
They bring it in, they put it in a room, and then at the end we get like a kind of creepy shot of all the aliens like infiltrating the house, like all these little classic gray aliens and their little snazzy suits come out.
Yeah,
And that's the movie.
a comparison that you made is one of the segments from, I think, VHS 2.
Yeah, I think it's called Slumber Party
And
Alien Abduction.
I like that one. I don't remember exactly how it ended, but the beginning of that is really creepy. This one doesn't have a ton of like creep buildup. It just is like something happened, we go look at it, then there's aliens, and then we go back to the house, and that's when the kind of paranoia and the tension starts to build.
But it's hard when it's being delivered in like
Shouts.
like very poorly like acted scenes by people who like probably wouldn't get away in like your local theater troupe kind of thing. Like I said, I think that aside from the mom, everyone's performances are pretty pedestrian. But it's also
that's a nice word.
like a really, really low budget film, and you can definitely tell it's just like a bunch of people got together to make a passion project, which I think goes directly into what you said before about it being admirable. Like it's like, is it a good movie? No, but does it show that you could literally just get a fucking camera and go make some shit that like is like feature length and it makes has a beginning, a middle, and an end, like, yeah.
Well, feature length.
I mean, it barely crosses it. It crosses right over.
So you mentioned, no budget. That's what this is considered, as a no budget film. It did cost, I think it says here, around $6,500. That was borrowed from something called Indie Syndicate Productions. So still extreme, basically no budget. They did just get kids in rubber costumes to play the aliens, Alien 1, 2, and 3. All of the actors, I'm sure, are just family friends. But yeah, the release of this, I think, is probably, like we were talking about earlier, the more interesting part. It had a very limited release through Axiom Films, and then
Action films.
yeah, and then eventually the movie was destroyed in a warehouse fire. So it didn't get it didn't get a classic wide release on video. But it did end up spreading around in bootlegs until eventually in 2018 it got its first DVD release, and then eventually got upgraded, as much as you can upgrade a movie like this, to Blu-ray.
And I believe that it has a remake. Is that correct?
Yes. So in 1998, it was remade into UFO abduction, or Alien Abduction: Incident in Lake County. They pretty much just I think UPN reached out to them and said, hey, a lot of people got freaked out by your original one thinking it was a real UFO movie. We'll give you some money to remake it. We'll give you an actual budget.
UPN?
So, yeah, UPN.
That's hella random.
Yeah.
Dude, I haven't heard UPN in a fucking minute.
Well, I guess at the time they were apparently
Not
showing a
the
lot
last
of
time
these
we
kind
went
of like, vampires are real types, the kind of stuff you would see, like, mermaids, secrets revealed on the History Channel or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big thing at this point. But this came out in 1998. It's 89 minutes long because, and it says here in the production, they just added a bunch of shit to try to get it to feature length. But it supposedly has a higher budget and real actors. But
I heard it's equally as rough.
Yeah. In both cases, though, it became a huge part of like the UFO community, because a lot of people still to this day apparently are convinced that at least the original McPherson tape is an actual alien encounter, and have used it as like, this is evidence that aliens and UFOs
with
are
little
real.
rubber suited
I know,
children.
right?
Come on,
But
dog.
I mean, really, how seriously can you take these people? But
True.
The Tom DeLonges of the world. But people are convinced to the point where they're like, oh, UPN had them remake it to convince us that the original one like wasn't real, like to hide that. That's why it burned in a fire, was because the government's trying to hide the evidence, and they wanted to remake it
with the little
to
fucking
make
rubber
us
kids,
convinced
man.
that it wasn't a real alien abduction thing. So people fall for this found footage.
I mean, it's the same thing that
stuff,
happened
you know?
in the UK with what's the thing that we
Ghostwatch.
watched? Yeah, Ghostwatch. Same thing.
Yeah.
I convinced my friend that Paranormal Activity was real.
I think a lot of people were potentially convinced that that was a real real footage of hauntings, but I think we're all a little bit more edumacated about the found footage genre at this point. But
I mean, overall, if you want to kill an hour, go for it. I don't think it's necessary. It's not going to really do too much for you, honestly. But again, if you just want to see something, like Anthony said, admirable, then it's not, I wouldn't say it's a waste of time.
No.
It's just not going to blow you away in any way.
yeah, so you can't talk about the history of found footage and found footage films without, of course, talking about 1999's The Blair Witch Project, which I did not see this until I was probably in college. I just remember a lot of people saying that title and talking about how creepy this was, and of course, the whole conversation around, is this real? Is it not? But because it came out in 1999, I don't think I ever really got that kind of exposure to what it must have felt like when this was actually being marketed and people potentially thought this was actually real.
I think the closest to for me would have been Paranormal
Activity. Yeah.
Oh, I would say Cloverfield. I thought that was real. I was like, what the fuck?
That thing really ripped the Statue of Liberty's head off?
It's crazy, dude. No, I meant that, and then realized what I was saying. In terms of viral marketing, I mean.
Yeah.
Not real.
Your first exposure to the viral marketing machine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember this, and I remember, I think, thinking it was real, and I think Kate, what's her name? I don't know. Katie's from Paranormal Activity, but that actress showed up in
Heather.
TRL. Like, she was on it. Yeah, Heather.
Yeah.
But it was. I think that did a huge service to this movie, where it's like the hype and the word of mouth and the is it real, is it not real? I think really boosted this movie up.
Well, yeah, and we've had this discussion about recent stuff where it's like things come out and you just never hear about them and there's no marketing, and then something like, Megan has a great marketing campaign and it does gangbusters, and people, I think, just really underestimate how important marketing is. And if you have a killer viral marketing campaign, then, really it's the best way to get people hyped about a movie, especially when it's something as weird as this. Like, I don't think there's any other way that they could have marketed this and got people to like want to go watch a movie that was shot on, shitty handheld camcorders and about some, annoying film students getting lost in the woods
and shouting at each other.
Yeah, and so it makes me want, and I feel this way about a lot of movies like The Exorcist or something, where it's like I desperately wish that I could transport myself back to the time period when this was coming out and when the viral marketing was happening, and like get into that hype. And it's just one of those things, you had to be there. Yeah. And as much as I will say right off the bat, I love the Blair Witch Project for a lot of reasons. I will say that most of those reasons come from the story around the production of the movie and what went into making this movie than it is about what the movie actually is.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of
I'm
where,
inclined to agree with that.
Yeah, where your head is a little bit at based on what you said earlier. But just a little bit of background on this for people who don't know. This came out in 1999. It was directed by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. And this was made on a $200,000 to $750,000 budget. Most of that budget ended up coming from a long editing process. This thing took 8 days to film, and
that's fucking crazy,
and
dude.
8 months to edit. The original cut of it was over 2 hours long.
Whoa.
And because they just shot a shit ton of footage over these 8 days.
I doubt any of that's worth it, at that point.
Yeah, and basically the way that they decided to make this movie was the two directors were film students, so similar to a James Wan Lee Winnell situation. They were looking to get into something that was going to be easy and dirt cheap to make. They had been watching the show In Search Of, and they were like, how do we make a horror movie that feels as authentically scary as these more like, kind of early true crime, like, more documentary focused things were. And so they're like, we can just, rent a couple cameras. That literally one of the cameras that they used in this movie, they rented from Circuit City and then returned at the end of the shoot and got their money back. So
player ass move, dude.
Yeah. But they put out a casting call. They wanted actors who were great at improvising and were ready to be a part of a very challenging, fucked up shoot. They narrowed it down to a pool of about 2,000 people, did auditions. Part of the audition process was asking the person, hey,
tell me where you are.
Yeah, tell me where you are and then your name. No, it was, they would just say, hey, you've been in prison for 10 years out of your 12-year prison sentence. We're considering paroling you. Explain to us why we should. And I guess Heather Donahue's answer was, you shouldn't. You shouldn't let me out. And she I don't know. Apparently, she impressed them enough, so they eventually cast Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard. They
those are all their names.
Yeah, so that was actually their idea originally. I think they had names like James, John, and something else, and the actors said, "Well, I think it would be more authentic in improvising if we use our real names in the movie." So they did, and yeah, the crew took them out into the woods. And basically just gave them a GPS unit and would tell them, okay, you got to go to this location today. They'd get to that location. There would be a milk crate with a film canister in it. The film canister would have their notes for the day for each actor. Like, this is kind of where your character's at, what we want you to do for this day. And then they would have to basically just improvise in that location about what they had found and what was going on. And then the directors would ping them with the new location and they'd have to go. And they repeatedly got lost in the woods for real.
Are those directors actually directing at that point?
So pretty much the entire movie is filmed by the actors.
Yeah.
And yeah. So it's a really weird thing of, yeah, I mean, like, when does the line of, like, does being a director mean...
Are they doing retakes? You know what I mean? Like...
I think that's the point. I think that they're attempting not to. I think that the whole point is that when they're sent off to go from point A to point B, the intention is that they are going to be in character improvising with each other and trying to drive the points of your character feels this right now.
Yeah.
Um,
And they stayed.
And this, their directors, and the fact that they're giving literal direction.
I mean, that's what a director is. I mean, a director's not a cinematographer.
No, but I mean, they're giving go to
Yeah,
the latitude.
Well, I think the
longitude.
direction is
GPS
that
directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the direction is your character feels this for these reasons.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's the direction.
They're
It's just
directors
it's
in
not
the sense of they're shepherding the story in the right direction, and the actors
it's
are getting to
more akin to something like a dungeon master than
Yeah.
it is like actual like real directing.
Yeah. You have an outline, but you're letting the players tell the story. That's a really good comparison. Yeah. But they stayed in character pretty much the entire time. They had
Did they sleep out there?
Yeah, so what would happen is they didn't have to carry their tent and stuff around while they hiked. The crew would set it up in the new location and do all that for them. They ran into problems at points where, like, at one point it rained and their tent flooded, and so they had to, like, just wander through the woods, and they eventually found some family's house, and the family put them up for a night, and then they, like, dried everything out and, like, went back out and shot. But they stayed in character the whole time, and they were only allowed to break character if absolutely necessary, and they used the word taco to indicate that they wanted to break character with the other people in the group. So they'd be like, taco, and then they would all break and talk about, like, if they were having a problem, you know, or if they needed to, they couldn't have phones or anything, so if they had a walkie-talkie, and they could only use it if they were, like, absolutely, you know, confused or in trouble. So they're just wandering through the woods, getting clues about what's happening. And the idea was one of the, I think, producers or one of the set designers or something, not set designers, just the woods. One of the guys working on the movie.
Mother Nature.
He had been in the military, and he said one of the practices in the military that they had to do was they would, like, send a guy out into the woods and then have a bunch of the other, you know, enemy troops, like other soldiers, hunt them for like 3 days straight through the woods, and it was the guy's job to try to survive and everything. And so they tried to, like, replicate parts of that by like giving them less and less food every day, and they would have them do these long days of shooting, and then at night, you know, they would go to sleep, and then the stuff you see happen in terms of, like, the rocks being piled up or the children's voices, that's the crew out in the woods with boom boxes just playing creepy ass noises and throwing shit at the tent and stuff, and they wouldn't tell any of the actors what was going to happen. So pretty much every reaction to something creepy in the movie is a real reaction that those actors are having because they're not being told what's about to happen.
Which adds a ton when it's all edited down and they finally found the right cut for it to what got so many people thinking that this was real because of the authenticity of the performances, because it's not a performance. A lot of the times they're like, what the fuck is going on, you know?
Yeah, there's that scene that is one of my favorites when Heather's running through the woods and she's like, what the fuck is that? And she's, like, screaming, and you don't get to see what it is that she's looking at, but you know something horrifying is over there. Apparently it was just one of the guys in the crew with, like, pantyhose on his head and, like, white long johns, just, like, running through the woods.
The old little Fresno Nightcrawler.
What the fuck? Right? And so they were supposed to show the Blair Witch in that part, but the camera whoever was operating the camera at that time didn't pan like he was supposed to. And so they were just like, well, we're not going to reshoot it. So they just decided, okay, we're just not going to show the witch in the movie.
Weird.
We'll just leave her mysterious. But they found a lot of things, like, through the course of the movie when they got to the end of the movie and they're trying to figure out how to end it. You know, the actors are running through the house, and the only instruction they have is like, okay, Mike, you just need to make sure that you stay far enough ahead of Heather that, you know, you get to the basement of the house before she does. And then he'd get down there, and, you know, the crew runs in and just grabs him and goes, okay, now you stand in the corner because that seems creepy, and we'll have you do that. And then Heather would run into the room, and they'd grab her camera and say, like, okay, scream, and then silent, put the camera on the ground. And then they made up the whole Rustin Parr backstory of him putting kids in the corner and killing them to explain, like, why they ended up doing that choice later in the movie. So a lot of it's found, like you said, in the edit. There's a ton more of, like, news reports and backstory to the myth and all of that was originally in the longer cut. A lot of that got chopped just to keep it as much about just these actors in the woods, but you still get a lot of those mix of actual townspeople, and then, like, some of them are actors in the beginning doing those interviews, like that creepy lady who's just like, yeah, I saw the Blair Witch, and she's, like, covered in hair and all this stuff. Some of those people are just they're not actors, they're just random people that they were like, hey, you want to be in our movie, and they would just make shit up on the spot. And then some of them are actors, and they wouldn't tell Heather and the rest of them who was an actor and who wasn't. So it was all about trying to immerse them as much as possible into this experience and make it seem as realistic as they possibly could.
I think there's another thing that this film benefits from, and I think you touched on it, that they keep things mysterious. They don't show the witch, and I think that they learned a lesson through maybe their editing process or through the fact that they made this mistake and the shot was so good that they couldn't proceed without it. So a small technical difficulty. They learned the lesson that Spielberg did during the shooting of Jaws. And that
they explicitly said Jaws was one of their biggest influences in not showing the witch in the movie.
Less is more. Mm-hmm. I honestly, in the majority of things that you show on film, most of the time I can think of some scarier shit in my head. I could think of a lot more teeth, bigger fucking claws, whatever. My imagination will run away with me in finding the creepiest possible thing to create for this creature you've made. If you do a good job of describing it and leading me to a place where I can make it grandiose.
Well, how creepy is that scene in The Conjuring where Joey King's just staring in the corner?
Yeah, it's standing right behind
you don't see anything. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Like, you don't see anything, and that's because you don't need to. Like, you see the acting, the terror, and then you, like you said, you get to use your imagination, and then that, like with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you think it's a lot worse than it is.
Well, and it ties that's why it ties so beautifully into the way they set it up in the beginning, where everybody has a different kind of version of the urban legend of the Blair Witch and like what she's all of. Is she the ghost of this Ellie Kedward girl who was killed during witch trial times? Is she somehow connected to the Rustin Parr killer who abducted these kids? How much of this is real? Is she covered head to toe in hair? What is?
Yeah.
And because each person has their own version of the Blair Witch in their head, and it, like you said, that is going to almost always be way scarier than whatever they put on screen. And in Blair Witch, the 2016 version, they put some fucking, generic tall ass wreck looking thing in the house, and everybody was like, what the fuck is this? And it's like, because if you don't show it, then people are forced to imagine what's out there. And I think also just putting it in the dark woods and tapping into that primal fear of being lost in the dark in the wilderness, like, and only being able to see, this far in front of your face, like and they just keep hearing sounds out in the darkness, and it's like that could be literally anything. And people have talked about, like, at the end of the day, there's a possibility that there was never even a Blair Witch, and that this whole thing was Mike and Josh fucking with Heather, like trying to get some sort of revenge on her, because there's some sort of animosity between some of them at different points, mostly between Mike and Heather. And so a lot of people think like maybe they just brought her out into the woods to fuck with her and were pranking her, or it could have been the fisherman from the beginning, like the guy and his son, who maybe were pranking some locals who thought they could come in and fuck around, and now they're gonna find out, that sort of thing. And so there are a lot of different theories about really how much supernatural shit is actually going on in the movie, and I think that also makes it scarier, because it's still terrifying to me, the idea that you go out into the woods and some local yokels decide they're going to fuck with you and end up murdering a couple of you or something. Like, that's still frightening.
Yeah.
Or it could be a Blair Witch.
Who knows?
Who knows? And a lot of people...
But who was phone?
So the movie as a whole, John, looking at it without any of that, just what's on screen, do you think that it's a good movie?
Yes. I don't think it's like a fantastic movie. I think it shows what you can accomplish with a camera and 3 people who are willing to give it everything they can.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for me, that's heartwarming. Like, I think that, there are 3 people in this room right now. We carry cameras in our fucking pockets. If we had a cool enough idea, we could replicate something like that very easily.
A lot of people felt the same way. This started a huge craze. This actually ruined the next year's hunting season. I'm not even kidding. Like, there was a huge dip in like the success of the next year's hunting season, because so many people were inspired to go out into the woods and shoot their own Blair Witch style movies that it scared all the animals away. And so people couldn't hunt, which, good. But yeah, this was a huge inspiration for, obviously, like, this is the movie I think that really Actually, I would say for our modern like renaissance of found footage, I would say Paranormal Activity is probably the movie that really got people to go, okay, found footage is the way to go. Because after Blair Witch, it was still a few years after this. Like Blair Witch is 99, and I wouldn't say immediately after that there's a bunch of found footage horror
There
movies.
are a couple,
there's
but,
a couple, but it's not
Paranormal
like
Activity
every year there's multiple.
Made it simpler. It made it so that way you could use multiple cameras, and you didn't have to have a character be the camera. So you could still be a viewer that's looking into this scenario rather than having to have like a cipher be like you are the person who's carrying the camera.
Yeah, you get it sometimes, but you don't get it all the time. As the series goes on, they start using like security cams, and then it becomes
Exactly.
even more removed. Yeah, totally.
And so I
Xbox
think that
connects.
and it also being in a situation where it's
Yeah, like
inside
3 or
of a
4.
house eliminates the need for like putting a bunch of people at risk, being out in the woods and potentially dangerous. It makes it a lot simpler to make that kind of movie because you could just literally get a few fucking Ring cameras or whatever brand you want to buy, whatever brand you're privy to, and you could just record footage in your house and just have some little fucking fishing wire and pull some shit around the room, fucking set a little fire here and there, and then and make something that's kind of spooky,
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty freaked out by this movie the first time I saw it, and I didn't really have any connection to the whole, like, is it real, is it not real? I knew it wasn't real when I first watched it. I just knew of the viral marketing campaign and, like, the fact that they put it, missing posters out. I guess for the whole first year that this movie was out, the IMDb pages for all 3 of these actors said missing, presumed dead.
That's so cool.
Like to the point where their parents were getting like condolences from relatives and friends, like about their kids being dead. And these people, like the actors couldn't talk in press or anything like until after the movie had come out. But I still think that for how simple it is, it still builds a shit ton of tension. I think that the chemistry between the actors is pretty good. Yeah, they can be annoying at times, but
they're also terrifying.
We can be annoying, like I'm sure to other people
frequently, I'm sure.
Yeah,
At least once a week.
yeah. It's like it just feels real. Like they're not perfect characters. They have their foibles, and that gets them into trouble. And I think some of the big impactful moments of like finding Josh's teeth and hair and wrapped in that bundle is fucked up. The stick figures are iconic at this point. The little cairns of stacked rocks, like all of that stuff.
It all was carried on into other mediums as well. If you look at something like True Detective.
Yeah.
Like
the iconography in that is so similar. Yeah. And yeah, just really I think a lot of people probably feel like this movie is not only dated because of the technology that it's shot on, which is obviously a downside of doing found footage, is that if you're shooting on real camcorders and stuff, it's going to look like whatever year you shot it in.
It's going to degrade over time.
But I like that this movie feels simple and straightforward and mysterious, and still has it still gives me that feeling of like I feel like this is real. And because outside of there being a Blair Witch, it is real. Everything that they're doing is real.
Yeah.
And that's pretty crazy, and I think it's really impressive. And
if you wait till
it still freaks me out. And like I know a lot of people these days, like I probably couldn't show this to a lot of people for their first time and have it keep their interest. But
I mean, if it's late and you turn the lights off, get the sound going. Like, I mean, I think
with surround where you could hear the shit in the woods and stuff.
Yeah, it has value in that regard for me.
Yeah, and then spun off, a whole
genre
and a couple shit sequels. But I did want to. Well, so were there any other comments? Because I know you weren't as big on this. Did you just feel like, were you bored by the movie this time around, or did you just feel like it was too simple, or what was really your kind of like?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't super into it this time around. Everything that we touched on, the background, great. Definitely admirable for the effort that they made, and I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. I don't know, I guess maybe I just wasn't in the mood because I've seen it before and enjoyed it, but this time around I was just like, I'm not really digging this because it does kind of take a minute for things to get going. Not that movies need to blast off or whatever, and I've been a fan of some older movies, but for some reason I was just like, let's go, give me some freaky stuff. I guess I just wanted a little bit more spookums.
Yeah. Well, if you want spookums delivered a lot quicker, watch the McPherson tape. Only 66 minutes long. So I wanted to read some just random trivia that I picked up that I thought was cool, funny, interesting. This film was in the Guinness Book of World Records for top budget to box office ratio for a mainstream feature film. The cost of $60,000 to make, and it made back $248 million, a ratio of $1 spent for every $10,931 made.
That's insanity.
And
crazy.
it held that record until I think it was broken by it held the record for highest grossing independent movie of all time until October of 2002, and was surpassed by My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh,
Which is, I guess, apparently
but not budget to box office return.
no, not the ratio. That's just like in terms of being the most profitable independent movie.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sure that's been surpassed by now. But Miramax originally passed on the opportunity to acquire and distribute this movie. And get this blew my fucking mind. The decision was made by then Miramax executive Jason Blum, who didn't think the movie would be a hit. Blum later became famous for producing the extremely profitable found footage horror film Paranormal Activity.
I didn't know that he was a Miramax exec.
Yeah, I guess before he got into his own Blum stuff. It's so crazy that his entire model is based off of the small budget Paranormal Activity thing, and he passed on Blair Witch. But hey, hindsight's 2020, and he may have seen that and gone, "Okay, Paranormal Activity, I'm gonna get all the way on board with."
Fucking yoink and twist is what it sounds like. Sounds like he saw them shits and is like, I don't think this is cool. And then it came out, did gangbusters, and he's like, well,
But what if I did this in a house? A Blum house.
Oren Peli was like, "Damn it, Jason, you've done it again for the first time."
You crazy motherfucker. When the movie was released, the town of Burkittsville did some of its own marketing in the hopes of making at least some profit from the film. During their annual summer carnival, the local Ruritan Club featured the Burr Witch sandwich, which was country fried ham and a fried egg on top of a cheeseburger nestled in a sesame seed bun doused with horseradish. The sandwich was the most popular selling item on the menu 2 years in a row. That was trivia specifically for you.
I'm so I feel like I was
He's a foodie too.
so I was all in and until the horseradish.
You like horseradish?
So I'm not like mad at horseradish. I just feel like all of those things.
That's the unexpected twist. The
Yeah.
thing that makes it
That's the
mysterious and
Shyamalan.
Yeah.
unknowable. Yeah.
He comes in and he does the little spoon push of every dollop of horseradish.
The first title for the movie was the Blair Witch Tapes. Its working title was The Black Hills Project. So I guess eventually they just combined those two.
But
The black.
At around 24 minutes into the movie, the scene with the three sitting around the campfire is probably the most expensive few seconds in the film because the production had to get the rights for Josh to sing the Gilligan's Island theme song.
Wow.
Yep. I found this very interesting. So Wilt's in the hospital recovering from his near fatal car crash. Stephen King's son, I don't know if it was Joe Hill or his other son, brought him a VHS tape of the Blair Witch Project to watch in the hospital. He told his son to turn it off halfway through because it was too freaky.
Real freaking neat.
The directors initially had some sort of shocking ending in mind, but when they ran out of money, they settled for the one used in the final film where Heather finds Mike standing in the corner. Although the ending frightened test audiences, they also found it confusing, so the studio sent them back to do several other alternate endings, which you can see if you get the DVD, I guess, or the Blu-ray. One of them is Mike hanging from a noose in the basement. One is him crucified on a giant stick figure.
That's cool.
One is him appearing with like a bloody hole in his chest. They had a few different versions where there were stick figures hanging all over the inside of the house. They eventually took those down and in the end decided to go with the original ending. And because of that, like I said, they retroactively added the stuff about Rust and Parr to the beginning to explain that. And then a little bit on where these actors are now. where their lives went after the Blair Witch Project. So
I'm curious about the directors too, if you have that information.
yeah. So I'll go into them because I've actually seen at least one of the other movies that I think Sanchez did. But Heather, she went on to talk about how much she regretted using her real name in this movie because it actually made it very difficult for her to get acting roles and do other things after this because people were like, "You're the chick that died in the Blair Witch Project," and
Or did she?
Yeah, and I guess people were just confused or whatever. So for a long time, she tried to do acting. She continued on it for a few years, but she now has changed her name. She goes by Ray Hance, and she grows medical marijuana and has a book about her journey from the Blair Witch Project to being a big medical cannabis
Right on.
proponent. The Mike, who played Mike, is now a guidance counselor in New York. Owned a movie theater for a while and did a couple other acting things. Josh is actually a very busy, still working actor. He's been in a few different projects. He was in that movie Unsane.
Oh, yeah,
also,
yeah.
The
Soderbergh project?
Soderbergh one, yeah. He's the
Shot on iPhone 7?
He's the creepy stalker guy.
Oh,
in
yeah,
Unsane.
yeah.
He is also married to Allison Pill.
Huh.
Who's that?
She's from Devs, right?
Yeah, she's in Devs. She's
Scott
also
Pilgrim, she's the drummer.
Yeah. Goon.
Oh,
Yeah. I love how Goon's the one that got you.
you lost. Oh, she's in all together.
But yeah,
She was in that them
Two
show,
rules.
right?
I think so.
Don't touch my fucking Percocets.
And?
And do you have any fucking Percocets?
But yeah, Josh was in the 2014 remake of The Town That Dreaded Sundown. He was in a movie called 6 Years. He was in The Shaggy Dog from 2006.
I've seen some of these.
Yeah, still working. In terms of the directors, Eduardo Sanchez. Let's see what else he has done. He did the Blair Witch Project. He did a movie called Altered, which is also like some dudes like kidnap and try to get revenge against an alien. I've seen it. It was pretty cool. Did a movie called...
I'm surprised that when it made so much money, these guys didn't immediately blow up.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was just because it was so weird that people were like, "Oh, it's a flash in the pan," and like that doesn't, maybe they were like, "What, did you actually direct this movie? It sounds like your actors filmed the whole thing." Like, do you have any talent? Did a movie called Seventh Moon. Did something in 2011 called Lovely Molly. Did a movie in 2014 called Exists, and then I forgot about this, but he actually did Butterfly Kisses from 2018, which is a found footage movie. I think it's not, that I highly recommend. I thought that movie was really creepy.
Yeah, you talked about it when you watched it, I believe.
Yeah, and Stuckman, I think, is the one it like recommended it on his channel. And then Daniel Myrick has done. He did a movie called Solstice in 2007.
That sounds familiar.
It's with Amanda Seyfried, Tyler Hoechlin. Weird. We were just talking about him, and Arlie Ermy. And it has a remake from 2003 called Midsummer.
What does?
This movie Solstice.
2003?
This is the fucking movie that has like the same plot as Ari Aster's Midsummer.
Yeah.
It's like, girl's sister kills herself, and then they go off like into the Swedish woods to celebrate Midsummer, and creepy stuff happens.
Solstice?
Yeah. The movie is called Solstice from 2007. It was remade as Midsummer, but with an ER at the end. Or no, it's a remake of Midsummer.
Okay,
it's a remake of 2003's Midsummer, which is a Swedish movie.
Oh, okay.
And he remade it as Solstice. He did a movie called Believers, a movie called The Objective, and in 2019, a movie called Skyman, which is another science fiction found footage horror film. So it really sounds like these guys have kind of just stayed within the found footage wheelhouse for most of their other directorial efforts. So
interesting.
With obviously I would say less success because we haven't heard really about any of these other movies, but hey, if it works for them, then cool. But yeah, I think Blair Witch Project, we wouldn't be able to talk about the kind of trajectory of found footage movies without really talking about the Blair Witch Project. But yeah, I think if you've never seen it and you're listening to this and you want to check it out, I would really recommend, going, checking it out, doing it, in a dark room, preferably with, nice headphones or surround sound, and let us know if you find it scary. Like, I'm really curious, if people, especially if you're younger, like, I don't know if we have any listeners who are younger, but I'd be really interested to hear like what a Gen Z, like
Take on it.
20-something-year-old take on the Blair Witch Project is. Do they find it just boring as fuck?
Especially without all the hype. Because it was new enough, like you said, like you weren't around for the hype, but you knew of the hype.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if you know nothing about this movie and just take it at face value if it does anything for you.
Yeah. Let us know if
We'll never know.
if you're young and you check it out. But
Look under your seats. Your film canister is under there, so that way you know what your characters' motivations are for today.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about the Blair Witch Project. I'm a big fan. I think it's a really inspirational story. And yeah, what are we doing next week, boys? You want to do Paranormal Activity since we've been talking about it?
I mean, I'm cool with that.
You want to do Paranormal and Noroi the Curse?
Sounds good. Paranormal Activity and Noroi the Curse.
Yeah, we're probably not pronouncing that correctly, but Noroi the Curse is a movie that I have heard people like. It's one of those like cult classic. I think it's Japanese. Stuckman did a whole video about how like amazing he thinks this movie is. I've never checked it out, so I'm really interested to check it out.
Oftentimes, Stuckman doesn't steer me wrong.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do with this, or what I try to do with this list, is hit the staples of the genre, at least over here in the States, and then also mix in some highly regarded foreign ones. So we will get to Wreck at some point and talk about that.
Wreck is such a fun watch.
Yeah, we got some other ones, and then mixing some sci-fi a little bit later on.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too.
Yeah.
Cool. That's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. We hope that you enjoyed that. We're going to continue with Found Footage February next week. That's a little bit of a tongue twister this time. With those two movies, and we will see you next time. I have been Tone.
I've been John.
Tell me where you are, Josh! Internet darling Anthony.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and or listening.
Keep it creepy.